me,
Hell
and
yeah.
it's nice to be part of Metal Monday.
But you know what? We ain't gonna talk much metal tonight, are we?
Not really. Nope.
Because I approached Peter and I were talking about doing a kind of thing together, and he kind of threw this one idea at me, and I kind of really kind of dug it. So I thought, you know what? Let's kind of run with this. And then he came up with an even better idea. So the premise of what I originally was going to do was, I know Peter to be a drummer, as you can see by his drum kit behind him. And I thought, you know what? I want to hear his take on particular drummers. So what I had originally started was doing basically a this or that, or so and so versus so and so, or something along those lines. And I gave him like 7 different groupings of drummers. Could be this person versus this person. Like, for example, one of the ones I gave him was the pioneer of bebop, Max Roach, versus another well-known jazz drummer, played many different bands, played with Miles Davis. He had his own thing, Mr. Tony Williams. And we were kind of going to go from there. Well, Pete came up with this great idea. And Peter, I'm going to let you describe it, and I'm going to let you roll with it.
Well, thank you. And I hope it's a good idea. But I think maybe more importantly, why don't you just give them the list that you gave me?
Okay, that I can do that too. So here's what we gave. Here's what I gave him. So I gave him Max Roach versus Tony Williams, legendary jazz drummer Gene Krupa versus another legendary jazz drummer and Buddy Rich, Billy Cobham, from what I understand, one of the best drummers in the world.
Yep.
Versus Steve Gadd, another wonderful session drummer. Ian Pace from Deep Purple. You kind of like him a little bit.
A little bit.
Versus Bill Ward, Black Sabbath. Ginger Baker versus Keith Moon.
Yeah.
Neil Peart versus Mike Portnoy. And lastly, Jeff Porcaro versus Terry Bozzio. So those were the 14 drummers, and I could have gone further with this list, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to kind of stick with those. So I gave him this picture of this list, and he kind of ran with an idea of tying all these guys together. So Pete, take it away.
Okay. Well, first of all, as anybody knows who's seen me on your show and other shows, knows that I'm very anti-pit one musician against another or art as a whole. I don't like best of lists. There is no better or greatest or whatever. But in that larger context, there are certainly characteristics about all these musicians that we can certainly compare and contrast and learn about. So that's really kind of what kind of hit me when I saw your list, and I was looking at them going, you know what? I think John may have unintentionally thrown together a possible timeline here. And so that's kind of what I'm going to look at here. And based on this list, we're going to start with maybe the most influential drummer of all time, Mr. Gene Krupa. And the reason Gene is so important is because of his moving the drums out front to become a visual presence. Before that, in the earlier big band eras, drummers were relegated to the back, best heard, not seen. And yeah, we can call it a tie. Absolutely. And, we can look at it and say, well, I don't think I want to be in a room with Ginger Baker or Keith Moon. That might be more scary. But Gene was able to take the drums, and it helped the compositions as well. And the band leaders that he played with also allowed him to do it. Mm-hmm. But there was a charismatic unavoidable presence about Gene. If we want to talk about larger techniques and facilities and, chops, that kind of thing, we can. Gene was more of a fundamental, rudimentary kind of drummer, but he did it in a completely unorthodox kind of way.
Right.
His flair, and his most popular song was the Louis Prima written Sing, Sing, Sing that he did with Benny Goodman. And, that changed everything.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden people in dance halls, and we have to remember that, pre-war dance halls were the thing. They were the place. That's where you got popular music. The swing era of the 20s and the 30s is the era of popular jazz music. There wasn't anything else. And his flair, and he was unbelievably flamboyant, and he was the first rock star. He had the looks, and he had the women, he had the drugs that went along with, all the things that started. There was Gene. And so we look at a lot of the rock drummers as we get down this list. Gene is going to be very, very prominent, because Gene focused on the toms and playing rhythmic patterns and things that translated into rock music later on. Well, his contemporary who came after him, and there was always this perceived battle, is Mr. Buddy Rich. Now, from a purely subjective or maybe even objective point of view, Buddy's facility, and I'll use that, his hands, his speed, his power, were well beyond what Gene's were. Many will say that Buddy is perhaps one of the greatest, if not the greatest soloist of all time.
Right.
Well into the later years of his life, he was still doing stuff that people over 50 years of watching him, and now all the decades after him, still can't do.
Yeah.
With all of the advancement that we see on here, with guys playing their feet at a gazillion miles an hour, that's great. But they couldn't combine it with the musicality and the musicianship and the power and the drive. Buddy was the one of these two that hit me the most.
Okay.
He just had so much propulsion. He almost played angry, which, based on all of the rumors and stories of his personality, and I think it was really just a case of Buddy was a perfectionist and expected that out of everybody. But if you think about it, a lot of the big bands, and Buddy was really kind of one of the first ones to do it, he took a lot of college kids and post-college kids in his band. He could have taken older musicians that were maybe more seasoned, but young people have a fire in them, and they have an assertiveness, but it's undisciplined.
Right.
And to Buddy, this was his way of getting the most aggressive, and it relates to his audiences because they're not, back in the day, if you sat in an orchestra as a young person, you're like, nobody in here is 30 years close to me. They were all much, much older, and you couldn't relate to them. Well, Buddy's bands and the bands that came out after that were younger.
Right.
So Buddy's playing was intensely fierce. Great sound. His snare drum is epic.
Yes.
And we'll keep that in the back of our mind. The sound of that snare drum. Well, coming out of the big band era, there's kind of a little backlash going on here. And there's a prominent drummer named Max Roach. Max outlives everybody of his generation, plays well into his 70s, and, is releasing records in the 80s and everything long. He just kept changing his styles. What was Max's contribution? Max helped pioneer bebop. And what did bebop do?
Mm-hmm.
Before that, the jazz drummers kept the beat mostly with their bass drum and hi-hat. And they would keep time while the band would play along and the upright bass would keep time. So the drums, bass drum would be boom, 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 like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's kind of this revolution going on here.
Mm-hmm.
And Max was pioneering it because he changed how a drummer focuses on the beat behind a jazz pattern. He moved it away from the bass drum, moved it up to the big ride cymbal.
Right.
And started to do what we call the spang-a-lang or the jazz beat ding, 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 and all the permutations that go along with it. Now, what does that do and why is that important? Because he's keeping time up here. Well, that allows this and his foot and all the combinations to start getting creative while he's still keeping time up here.
Right.
And now he can throw in a burst or a flare on his tom or play multiple patterns while he's still keeping time. And the bebop players really came out, and I wrote this down because it was reaction to the mainstream jazz of the great swing era, emphasizing up-tempo. A lot of their tracks are extremely quick, can be. Complex harmonic emphasis, heavily improvised. This is the era of the virtuoso, in my opinion. This is where it starts. Because the contemporaries, who are we talking about? Charlie Parker.
Yeah.
Dizzy Gillespie.
Yeah.
Thelonious Monk. And on and on.
Yeah.
And Sarah Vaughan. And a lot of Carmen, I forget her name, Carmen McRae. In the vocal area too. And they're just expanding. And it's expanding and it's expanding. And it's saying, don't put me in a box.
Right.
And it's saying, I want to stretch out. And it also used a lot of dissonance. And that's using notes that normally are not used in the same chords, which causes sonic tension.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And they use that a lot in their soloing.
Yeah.
And so they had the traditional jazz people before that. And something else happened that really changed it all. Let's go back to the dance halls. The dance halls shut down because of World War II.
Right.
And now that popular place is gone. Now everything goes into clubs. All the music goes off the mainstream into the speakeasies, into the smoky places, all over the key spots of the country.
Mm-hmm.
New York, Chicago, St. Louis, New Orleans, and Kansas City, and.
Yeah.
And so Max is unbelievably important. Well, let's take the list for a second.
Okay.
Let's take the Buddy Rich for a sec.
Okay.
We can also then tie in Louis Bellson. We can tie in Joe Murillo from Dave Brubeck.
Okay. Right.
Brubeck was a little bit later. That's into the 50s, early 60s.
Mm-hmm.
But what comes out of that is a whole generation of drummers who are heavily influenced by Buddy and Gene and Max and Louis and Joe.
Right.
And so who do we get? We get the British drummers. And we get my guy, Ian Pace.
Yeah.
And we went back. Let's go back to what I said about Buddy's snare drum. Listen to any Buddy Rich record.
Mm-hmm.
And then go listen to any live Deep Purple. That snare drum is right there.
Nice. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
High, clean, crack like a gunshot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's articulate and it is capable of a wide range of dynamics, soft to loud, and I programmed the whole thing. No, I'm kidding. And go watch the Denmark show that's in black and white of Deep Purple, and watch their version of the Mule.
Okay.
Ian's cooking along. He gets to his snare drum, and he does this little lift, pulls the stick soft to the rim, goes vroom, 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 vroom. Go look at any Buddy Rich solo. He does it almost every time. It's right there.
Yeah.
But we get the tom work in. That's Krupa. We get the toms. Now they start converting it from a swing feel to a straight eighth feel, because that's what the British musicians did. They took a blues jazz swing feel and turned it into a straight eighth rock feel, but it's still swung. You have to mention that it's still swung, because not all eighth notes are the same. Because if we have a tempo, and we go one, dun, 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 then subdivide into eighth notes, okay, they're correct. Dun, 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 dun. Even if we want to take the tempo, but kind of lilt them a bit. That's what the great jazz players do. That's why Jimi Hendrix swings like crazy, because Mitch Mitchell loves Elvin Jones and Art Blakey and Max Roach and Buddy.
Speaking of Art Blakey.
Good timing, right?
Way to go, Uncle Me. Thank you for sticking him in there.
Look, you can't have any of these conversations with these great jazz players without mentioning Alvin and Art and these guys, because then we're going to jump directly to Ginger Baker. Ginger very famously took great offense to being called a rock drummer. He didn't like it. Now, truth be told, I think personally, Ginger is more of a rock drummer with a jazz player's mentality.
Right.
So there is a difference. Okay. But if you listen to, let's say, Toad, his solo song, right? What's he doing? He's not going do 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 do. No, he's not. No, he's not playing rock beats. He's jazzing all through it. He's got amazing independence. He keeps that left foot on his hi-hat on 2 and 4. That's Blakey. That's Elvin Jones. Later rock drummers drop that part of their playing. The left foot doesn't do anything unless it moves over for a second bass drum lick. It's only there to open and close the hi-hat every once in a while. So then we've got Ginger, whose fills in his long extended solos are very tom driven. That's Krupa. That's his versions of Sing, 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 but he'll come in with polyrhythms. But those polyrhythms come from Max Roach.
Right.
Max, during his solos, was extremely unorthodox. Buddy was a stream of consciousness. Buddy was just go. He dynamics and everything, but Max would leave tons of space. Max would be like boom, 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 and you're like, what is he doing? And then he'll do a snare thing. And you're like, okay, that's Ginger. Okay. And so then he's got that influence. And of course, Mitch Mitchell influences guys like Danny Seraphine, Billy Colomby from Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And we're going to get to Bill Ward in a second, because to me, Bill Ward comes from the Max Roach school.
Mm-hmm.
Sparse, space,
Right.
color, context. He's about layering flavors. Even when he does do a full beat, it feels different. It's not just straight ahead, hammering. It's got color. Listen to what he does in Fairies Wear Boots. He's not going. He's not hammering through it. And then he gets to the verses where they bring it down over on the ride cymbal. He doesn't have that bass drum going underneath.
Right.
Bass. Geezer's got that covered.
Right.
That allows Geezer to have room.
Yeah.
And so Bill is more of an orchestrated percussionist versus a drum set player per se.
Right.
That directly comes from Max Roach. Bill has said many, many times he loves the jazz players. He loves the big band style. And he likes to, as they were saying in the comments, one of the big calling cards of the bop era is syncopation.
Mm-hmm.
That's, for those who don't know, it's taking something off of a major beat and giving it emphasis. So like Children of the Grave or any of these other songs, if you were to, these punches, or like on Fairies Wear Boots, that's a syncopation because it's not on a major beat. And the tighter those are, and what happens is Bill picks those little elements and says, oh, I want to push here. I want to pull back here. I want to nudge here, which gives it all this fluidity.
Mm-hmm.
And as doomy as Sabbath is, it still flows.
Yeah, it does.
That's what other hard metal bands don't get.
Right.
It still has to flow.
Right.
It has to swim like this, not this. Right. It's got to swim. Waves, ebbs, flows. That's what's cool about it. War Pigs does it perfectly.
Yeah. Yep.
And even when Bill does a straight beat like he does in Paranoid, he's still kind of just coloring. And he's not blowing it up with fills, and he's not messing it up with all this other space. Now, we go to the other side of Ginger here, and we get a contemporary who came in just slightly later, but the Who wasn't too much behind where Cream was. We get Keith Moon.
Uh-huh.
Keith is a hard one to figure out.
Yeah, I'll say.
Because the reason I think he stands out so much for me is that when I try to trace back a lineage, I hit a roadblock. Now, but that's not a bad thing.
Right.
Okay? That means he created something that didn't exist before.
Yes.
That's what Keith Moon did.
Yes.
Keith Moon, if he took anything, took much more of a singer's approach to drumming. And the reason I say that is I can play for people. You have to know the songs, but to a point, I could take all the other tracks out and just play his drums. You'll know what song it is.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll know where in the song he is. Right?
Right.
I tip my hat to the new Constitute. He's syncope, don't. You know exactly where he is. All you got to do is listen to the drums.
Yep.
He's shaping everything. And what he did is he went even more unorthodox.
Okay.
There were still kind of rules up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Downbeats were on 1, backbeats are on 2 and 4. If you're playing in 4/4, a lot of times if you were going to place a crash, it was either on a major beat at the beginning or the end of a bar or a phrase to signify we're in a new section, right? Moon didn't care. Moon, he's like, okay, if I want to put a crash on the and of 2, I'm gonna. And you're just like, what? Why? Where did that come from? But it works. To replicate Keith Moon is near impossible. And who's tried? We've heard Simon Phillips. We've heard Zach Starkey, 2 extremely gifted drummers, right? But what do? They come at it conventionally because that's who they are.
Right.
But you can't. You can't replicate chaos. And that's how he played. Now, a lot of that had to do with his physical or emotional or biological, chemically state of mind at the time. The rumors were that if he was on one of his real speed days, the set would end like 40 minutes early because he was playing so fast, the set's over.
Right.
But if he was on the downward side of it, big old Entwistle over there is dragging him along, going, come on. We got to keep moving. But his playing also completely unconventional. Most of his career, he never used a hi-hat. Never had a hi-hat.
Right.
Wasn't until Who Are You era, he puts a hi-hat in his kit. So what is he doing? All of his cymbal work are on crashes and larger, small rides. And what do you see when you watch him? He's doing this. His arms are all over. They're like this.
He's like a.
There is no over here. It's in front, left, and he took his left foot that normally, like the jazz players would do on 2 and 4 to accent, moved it to his other bass drum, kept time with his left foot,
mm-hmm.
and then accented with his right, which is ridiculously unconventional. Ginger did a lot of that. He'd move over. So when he'd play double bass, all he would do is switch his left foot from the hi-hat to the left bass drum, and the right foot never changed. And then he would just fill in the gaps, which creates all these really gorgeous, unique polyrhythmic patterns.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what drove. Listen to Young Man Blues from Live at Leeds, right?
Right.
Well, yeah, he was the original octopus. It was just this.
Yeah. Yeah, he was just everywhere.
Fine. And you'd look at his drum kit and you're like, who set it up? One tom is leaning this way, one tom's leaning. You're like, how can you even play that? But then listen to the sound he got out of those drums. And you know why?
Mm-hmm.
What's his one thing? His hands are always like dancing, like this.
Yeah, like a puppet master look.
He's
almost
pulling the sound out of the drums, not trying to hit through it to the floor.
Right.
That will get you a bigger sound. And it worked. So we can then, of course, say, well, where'd Keith Moon come from? Keith Moon, where did he go to next? Well, we have this guy named Neil Peart, who's a huge fan of Keith, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, he infamously says, I love the Who, but I could never imagine finding where they were staying and camping out to bother them,
Right.
Okay. And you say, well, God, I don't hear that chaos in Neil's playing. No, you don't. Neil is way too structured for that. And that's the uniqueness of Neil. But you say, well, what about throwing in the crashes every once in a while? Yeah, Neil does it a lot. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, he probably does it in his most famous drum fills of all time are the breaks in Tom Sawyer.
Yes.
Da 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 da, digga, 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 da. It's that crash right there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's typically not done.
No.
He'd wait till the fill was over,
Yep.
hit the crash. He throws it in the middle.
Yep.
And then da 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 da, digga, digga, da, digga, digga, da, digga, da, 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 da. That's Moon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is.
That's his
That is.
version of Moon.
Right.
Structured, controlled, precise, and the single most unique thing of any drummer ever is that up until he decided to switch a lot of his things with working with Freddie Gruber, for the most part, his drum parts were played the same every show.
Right.
John, there is no way on earth I can explain to you how ridiculous that is.
There is no way.
From a mental standpoint, to be that disciplined,
Yes.
to just not go, screw it.
Right.
Now, the guys who come close are the drummers for AC/DC because they can't, because the music won't let them.
Right.
Because then that's like pulling your pants down in Times Square. You just outed yourself big time.
Yeah.
But you can go back and you go, okay, where are those three drum fills in By Toward the Snow Dog before they go into the 7 part? They'll be the same every time.
Yes.
And as a drummer, you're going, yes. And you're just like, oh, wait, I want to wait. What is he going to do at the end of Natural Science? He's going to, you're like, yeah. Or the end of Subdivisions, you're going to be like, and he would do it every time. No drummer's ever done it before him, and no one's done it since. It was so disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
It's as Taylor Hawkins said at the induction of Rush into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He goes, Neil's drumming was songwriting. He was composing. He wasn't just playing. He was composing. And I can promise you, there was an evolution. He started here, it moved to here. He tried this, he tried that. Wait a second, I want to refine this. Which fill works better? Oh, wait, I want to. And then he's like, this is what I want. No different than Alex saying, I want to use this guitar sequence, or Geddy saying, I want to add this, or sing this melody.
Right.
Ridiculous. That is the uniqueness of Neil Peart. Unmatched.
Correct. Yeah.
And his ability to change styles, to go into other areas, incorporate electronics in a tasteful and respectful way was groundbreaking. Was absolutely groundbreaking. Playing with sequencers, it still sounded like Rush.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, okay, that's nuts. Well, from him, we get who I call Son of Neil, Mr. Portnoy, right?
Right.
And there's no question that he's heavily influenced by Neil, but that would be shortchanging Portnoy's influences because he's all over the map.
Yeah.
Because Ringo may be his first hero, but he's a massive Keith Moon fan as well.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, John, and this is the thing I always try to tell younger players especially, if you like somebody and you like a musician, don't just listen to them and say, yeah, this is great. Do your homework. Go listen to who they were listening to.
Right.
And then go back. Keep going back because that's what's important. And right now I see a whole generation that doesn't do that.
Yeah.
They don't do it as players and they don't do it as listeners. So some of those things are dying off, which means that
sorry, Kevin, to disappoint, but
no Lars tonight. No Lars tonight. And so Portnoy is a huge early Beatles guy. He loves songs. He loves compositions. His drumming style clearly is influenced by Neil.
Right.
And where you get it and it's a signature thing. And the thing is, we could do another whole show on what signature licks and things these guys all had.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them is that I even use subdivisions. Neil would take bars of 7, which means you have an odd number.
Right.
So if you start on 1 in the bar of 7, you're going to be on the ands of the beats the next 7 bars because you don't hit the 1.
Right.
So he would go between his ride and his china. So he'd go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and now he's off. And next time it's now in the upbeats.
Yeah.
Portnoy does that constantly.
Yeah.
Especially on Images and Words, Awake.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing that all over the place. And the big drum kit is almost a backlash in a way. He saw Neil go down to a single bass drum,
Mm-hmm.
right around Roll the Bones, I think. And he's like, no, big kit. We want big kit. We want 2 bass drums. So what did he do? He went the other direction. I'm going to make this Siamese monster with double kits and everything, because that's his homage to Neil saying, yeah, okay, if you don't want to have the bigger kit, I'll do it. Right?
Yeah. That's what he did.
So let's jump for a second. Let's go back to Max Roach, and we get to the next evolution is Tony Williams. And Tony Williams might be the most important drummer of the 20th century, because he took all the influences early and took them in another direction with such proficiency and such skill. He's playing with Miles Davis at 17 years old.
Yeah. That's amazing.
17. And he's redefining drumming. His polyrhythmic and complex rudimental style with fierce power and control. But he wasn't afraid to say, I love rock and roll as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because he could go into whatever little phone booth and put on whatever little suit he needed. He's like, okay, who do I need to be today? Okay, I'm in a small group with Miles. Okay. It's tasty beyond comprehension. He's like, well, wait a second. I'm kind of done with that. That's not the gig. Miles has gone in another way. You know what? I'm going to play with him. First, I'm going to play with McLaughlin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, and I never saw Tony, which is so disappointing. But all the friends of mine who saw him said you'd be stunned at how loud he plays.
Oh, I bet.
How powerful he was. That he's just explosively loud. But he could play with a whisper. He had unlimited technique. And then, of course, Lifetime's got various permutations. He gets with Alan Holdsworth, and everything is just like, we're off the charts here. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so we have multiple people who all come from Tony Williams. Steve Smith, Simon Phillips, Todd Zuckerman, but he comes via Steve Smith. Simon Phillips comes through. Yeah, tonally, he was. The fact that he had a clean separation, a tone palette that Neil enjoyed, that Carl really had, especially on all those early records, where you could really cleanly differentiate. And Carl also had that Buddy Rich snare drum sound.
Mm-hmm. He did. He certainly did.
Listen to his solo on Welcome Back, My Friends during Carnival. That snare drums, that's Buddy. And Carl had hands in the foot that were easily as quick. But Tony comes out into a guy named Billy Cobham. And Billy, along with Lenny White, changes everything because they play what we call open-handed. Right-handed drummers set up a kit traditionally from the jazz era, Hi-hat is on the right side, ride cymbal is on the left, ride cymbal is on the right. So you cross over between your snare drum and your hi-hat. Open-handed means you just do this. You move your left hand out here, and your right hand is now not crossed.
Mm-hmm.
Let's tie in something here.
Mm-hmm.
Max took it from the hi-hat to the ride so he could do what? Move around. What does open-handed allow you to do? Move around.
Yeah, makes
there
sense.
It is.
There you go.
Now you get all of this Chick Corea stuff. Return to Forever, Cobham. These guys are playing open-handed. So they can do these fast hi-hat things while the right hand is moving around the toms. Watch Simon Phillips for 3 minutes. There, that's what Simon's doing.
Right.
He gets that from Lenny and Billy.
Mm.
And during the same time, we have a powerhouse named Terry Bozzio, who is learning from everybody and is, again, kind of just a freak.
Yeah.
He's taking the Tony Williams thing. He'll tell you he ripped off Williams more than anybody. The double-handed, what we call blues does, and all that kind of stuff. The double bass flurries. And the Billy Cobham would go on his snare drum and do these double bass things with his hands. He'd go, bam, bam, bam. Well, Terry moves them up to the cymbals.
Mm.
He gets that from them. And he goes and does all his Zappa stuff, Missing Persons, all the great. I love him when he's with Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
And UK is insane. Terry should never play solo ever again. He should play with a band the rest of his life because that's who he should play with. He's
right.
way better in a band.
Right.
And we get that out of the Art Blakey, Elvin Jones thing. It kind of changes into the pop world. And we get guys like Bernard Purdie, Jim Keltner, Jim Gordon.
Yeah.
And they create this whole new era of drummers. Steve Gadd.
Yeah.
You want to call somebody the professor, you know.
Yeah. Steve Gadd definitely would be right up there too.
That Missing Persons set at the US Festival is fierce.
Yes.
Terry's just killing it. And another guy, he took the aggression from Tony Williams. Terry beat the crap out of his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've got Gadd. But what is Gadd? Gadd is a one-all, do-all, fix-it widget that can do everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's at home in a small combo on the Friends album with Chick Corea.
Mm-hmm.
He's at home with Al Di Meola. Or he's at home with Ricky Lee Jones.
Eric Clapton,
Paul Simon, or the 80 gazillion other people he's played with.
Yes.
And continues to play with.
Yeah.
As he's still playing.
Yeah.
Rudimental, but feel for days. And of course that spawns the Caliutas and guys like that.
Yeah.
Dennis Chambers comes from the Cobham Tony Williams school.
Right.
But the last guy who comes out of that studio thing is a guy named Jeff Porcaro. From a very musical family. Jeff loved Keltner and Gordon.
Yeah.
And he had a strange sensibility. Jeff would always tell you he wasn't a very good player. Oh, I don't have a facility. I can't play press rolls. I can't. No, he just had like the greatest feel ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And he wore his influences on his sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
He says, oh, I took this when I was playing with Steely Dan. I took it from this guy. I took it from him. Look, Rosanna is his version of Bernard Purdie and John Bonham.
Yeah.
Pretty varied world there.
Yeah.
But who did Bonham listen to? Bernard Purdie.
Yeah.
Because Bonham loved dance music.
Mm-hmm.
And he loved Motown.
Yeah.
And he loved Philly.
Yep.
Sax. And so Everybody is swimming in the same water,
Right.
drinking the same tea.
Yeah.
It's just flavored different.
Yep.
So that's just kind of a
very broad stroke, more or less.
Yes.
But
they're
wow.
all related.
Yes, they are. I'll tell you what, this is just, again, we're just scratching the surface. There's so many names we could have easily thrown in there, but we'd be on here for 6 or 7 hours talking about this. So, but
if there's a heaven somewhere that exists.
Boy, yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it. But so don't mean to cut all this short, because God, I could listen to this all night long. But I gotta hit the road, because I gotta be on Grant's channel here in just a few minutes. But Peter, thank you. This is, again, mind blowing to me to listen to what you know, when you talk about drummers and stuff like this. You have the knowledge is definitely there, and it's always wonderful to be under that learning tree. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time to do this. So like I said, Meet's coming up with Stuart Copeland here. There's so many more people we can talk about.
Oh, absolutely.
But folks, for all of you who have been watching, thank you for your comments in the live chat. Sorry for not including a lot of it, but I hope you all have been liking this. I hope you like this little Monday Night Metal time with me. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your enemies. I don't care what you tell. Let's talk. Let's get some of these things, and let's have some fun on Monday nights. Getting warmed up for some of the other bigger shows that comes on during the night. So, Peter, again, I want to thank you, my brother. We'll do this again. We might have to do part 2, because I just loved listening to all this. This is so awesome.
Anytime.
So let's do that. Sydney, I appreciate it. Much appreciated that.
Thanks, Sid.
That's a Meat. I'll have Meat on here one of these Mondays. We'll definitely get something here soon. But anyway, this is your host, Johnny Metal. Thank you for being on Monday Night Metal. We'll see you next week. I don't know. I've got somebody lined up. I'm not going to tell you who, but I think it might be a fun episode. It's probably going to be some other random Canadian guy. I don't know. Anyway, rock forever, y'all. Thanks in advance for keeping on watching, and we will see you all soon. Thank you again, Peter. Let's do this again soon. Rock forever, all. Take care.